Hey guys, so I just finished watching Superman the movie on beautiful Blu-ray, 4K, HDR, and oh my god, wow. This is the best this movie has ever looked. Superman the movie is one of my all-time favourite films. I saw it when I was very young. It was one of the first movies I ever saw. But I did see Superman 2 first. A friend of ours had it pirated on Betamax, and we just bought a new machine, so they lent it to us, and it was one of the first videotapes we ever put into the machine, and I kind of fell in love with it. So I did watch Superman 2 a lot before actually seeing the first one. It became one of my favourite films of all time. It introduced me to Superman, and it introduced me to cinema, like blockbuster cinema, and awoken in me a real love for fantasy, sci-fi, and superhero films in general. This movie is amazing. So I do have the box set here as well. It's got Superman 1 through 4 with Christopher Reeve, and then the Superman Returns with Brandon Routh. That's a really cool box set. And then last year I did a review on the Superman 3-hour cut, and I'll leave a link for that so you can check it out if you like. I go pretty in depth. I've got nothing but love for this film. And there was a scene in this version of the film I was watching when Clark Kent and Mark Kent are standing in a field. Clark has come to the realization after discovering the crystal in the barn that he has to leave. So he and Mark Kent are standing in this field. And I'm watching it, I'm thinking this would look amazing in 4K HDR because it just looked kind of drab, and it just looked like there was a lot of room for improvement. It's the only way I've ever known the film, but since the introduction of 4K and in that scene, I just had an epiphany that this really needs to be on 4K. And then within a year, we have it. And speaking of that scene, wow, when that scene appeared in a film, I literally said, I knew it. The HDR really shines in this film. The greens in that scene with all the grasses, you could almost count each individual strand. The definition's that clear. And it almost had like a 3D quality to it as well. But the different greens in the grasses and across the fields, and then the blue skies in the background with the clouds, it literally took my breath away how beautiful this was. And I was so happy that the 4K HDR version of this film scrubs up so well. There is a lot of grain through this film. It's an older movie filmed in 1978. Some scenes I found it quite heavy to the point of distraction. Luckily my TV has got an option to turn down the clarity of the HD image. It does ease off that grain a little bit, but it's still fairly prominent all the way through. If you love grain and you're a cinema buff, then yeah, you're not going to be too bothered by it. But then there are those who just do not like grain at all. So I'm in the middle. Like, I don't mind grain, especially in 4K. It gives a real cinematic quality about it. But it was a little bit distracting, especially at the beginning on Krypton when they got the white suits, which looked astounding, by the way. They were so bright, but there was a lot of movement in those scenes. And let me talk about Superman's suit here for a minute. I've seen this film at least 100 times easily in my lifetime, and I've never seen it look so bright and so spectacular as it does in this version of the film. The scene in particular where Lois is waiting for Superman to come and do an interview with her on her balcony, and he flies down and lands just on the wall, and she's looking at him, and he's just standing there, Christopher Reeve in his suit, New York City skyline in the background. I meant to be Metropolis, but hey, they blatantly acknowledge it as being New York with the Statue of Liberty featuring quite heavily in a lot of the shots. There's Superman on the wall, cityscape behind him, and Lois is just looking at him, and he literally pops off the screen. The blues, the reds, the yellows of this suit just look almost three-dimensional with the clarity, and the HDR is just so bright. And he really does stand out as a beacon of hope. I mean, literally, Superman is this bright, beautiful figure, and when you're looking at him in this format, nothing else really comes into your field of vision. It looks incredible. So yeah, the HDR and the 4K, the definition, like the seams in the suit, the pattern in the material, the hair, everything stands out so beautifully. There's a lot of detail, and I'm so glad this has come out finally, and they've really done it justice. It looks fantastic. This is a top-notch version of the film. And yeah, I mentioned the grain. It doesn't really bother me, to be honest, too badly. Like, once I softened it, it wasn't an issue. But man, I'm such a fan of this film, and watching it now, coming to terms with the loss of Margot Kidder and Christopher Reeve so many years ago, it does have a lot of sentimentality to me now. So watching this film is always such a wonderful time for me. Just it kind of recaptures my youth and just reminds me of my love of cinema. So what Richard Donner did all those years ago, back in 1978 when I was just a small kid, was just create magic, and it still holds up really well today in comparison to the new films. It's a tried and true superhero film. It's one of the best ever made, and it's set that high bar that every other superhero film that came after it is compared to it. It really is. And I just had a quick flashback to the scene, the helicopter rescue scene. And once again, looking phenomenal in the 4K, like when Superman first appeared in that outfit. And oh man, it just stopped me in my tracks. It was so wonderful. That scene is such an heroic, iconic moment in film, and seeing it look so pristine with that music, wow, I was just blown away. It was incredible. So if you're a fan of the movie, if you've never seen it before and you've got a 4K player, pick it up. You're going to be seeing it in pristine quality immediately. But if you're a fan of the film and you haven't seen it in 4K, pick it up. It's the best the film's ever looked, and it's going to be the only way I'm going to be watching it now, which is going to be a problem because this is the theatrical cut. That's the 3-hour version. So this has got all the scenes in it that you're going to love. All those bits put back in. Whereas this one, it's the theatrical cut. So it's like 40 minutes shorter. And all those scenes, like for instance, when Superman's first going to Lex Luthor's lair and Lex has laid out all these traps for him with the fire and the ice and the guns, that's excised from this film. And it's a great scene. So I really miss it not being in this one. But I guess beggars can't be choosers. We've got the theatrical cut on 4K and it looks great. So we really got the best of both worlds, to be honest. I got the 3-hour cut and the 4K, but going back from 4K to Blu-ray, it's going to be a little bit hard, but it's just a small gripe. Anyway guys, that's my review on Superman the movie 4K in HDR. Blew me away. If you're not seeing it, please pick it up and watch. You will not be disappointed. A lot of fans of Man of Steel and Batman vs Superman, yeah, they're going to consider this movie, the Superman the movie, a lot slower in its pace. It takes its time setting up its story and introducing its hero. And 70s film for me is just, well, it's what I grew up on, so I've got a big soft spot for it. Anyway guys, thank you so much for checking in and watching my review. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Thanks for watching.